call this meeting of the Silver City Town Council to order. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week, October 6th through the 12th, 2013. And if you're here to receive that, meet me at the podium.
This is George.
Come on, Tom. Whereas the town of Silver City is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting our town, and fire is a serious public safety concern, both locally and nationally. And homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire. And whereas home fires killed more than 2,500 people in the United States in 2011, according to the National Fire Protection Association. And fire departments in the United States responded to 370,000 home fires. And whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, where fire departments responded to more than 156,000 annually between 2007 and 2011. And 2 of every 5 home fires start in the kitchen, and unattended equipment was a factor in 1/3 of the reported cooking fires. And whereas 57% of reported non-fatal home cooking fire injuries occurred when the victims tried to fight the fire themselves, and children under 5 face a higher risk of non-fire burns associated with cooking than being burned in a cooking fire. And whereas the town of Silver City's residents should stay in the kitchen when frying food on the stovetop, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking areas, and keep anything that can catch fire away from stovetops. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And whereas the town of Silver City's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And the town's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2013 Fire Prevention Week theme, Prevent Kitchen Fires, effectively serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Now therefore, I, James R. Marshall, Mayor of the Town of Silver City, Grant County, New Mexico, in view of the inherent value of this, do hereby proclaim October 6 through 12, 2013 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this community, and urge all of the people of Silver City to check their kitchens for fire hazards and to use safe cooking practices during Fire Prevention Week 2013, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Silver City Fire Department.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Charles, go ahead. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As he pointed out, the focus and emphasis on this week's fire prevention theme will be safety while cooking in the kitchen, having an adult present at all times when there's children that occupy the residence, as well as keeping at least a 3-foot distance from stovetops, that sort of thing. So by the end of the week, we'll have interacted with over 750 kids from the local schools. So it's a pretty good number for us this year, up significantly from last year. It was around 650 students from last year. So if you have any questions or any comments, short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public input. And I remind you have 5 minutes to speak. If you're looking at me, I'll give you a 1-minute warning. And we have Larry McLeod. Noise.
Good evening. My name is Larry McLeod. I live at 202 South Bullard Street in Silver City. 202 is right across the street from Home Furniture, between San Vicente and Spring Streets. As you might recall, I sent a letter in May talking about the concerns we had about noise coming from very loud vehicles driving by our residents. We also came to a council meeting in June or July and spoke about it, and I wanted to come back today and give you an update. Basically, very little has changed, unfortunately. We have 5 or 6 people in the neighborhood that drive by regularly at a very loud noise that clearly is in violation of the noise ordinance in the town. One vehicle, which is a black Camaro, the license plate number is in our letter, I will not repeat it here now, is the focus of our concern right now. He's the loudest person that drives by us, and he drives by the most often. And we're very concerned about this issue. It's not going away. I continue to call and file concern about noise with the police department. I've had an officer stop by my house and talk to me about it. He came back a few days later and said that he had contacted the blue Camaro owner, or black Camaro owner, and that he told him that he had to do better. He had to quiet his vehicle, but it has not happened. That vehicle is still running amok, and I felt that the commission should be aware of that, and we're not going to give up. We need some relief here. One possibility, one solution would be to put a speed bump right outside our house. And if the council cannot afford a speed bump, I'll pay for it. So please help us. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is council comments. Councilor Bedison, would you like to start?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to just comment that I was fortunate to attend the Governor's Award for Excellence in the Arts, where the Members Region Arts Council and Faye McCalmont, its executive director, received the award for the excellence in the arts from the governor, and it was on October 4th. And it was truly a wonderful event and evening. I have to say that some of the artists and their families that were there, and the artists that received awards along with the Members Region Arts Council, actually came up to me and many of us that were from Silver City and commented on the fact that we were really fortunate to have someone like Faye McCalmont as the executive director, and they couldn't believe what a wonderful person she was, and the fact that they thought that their award was insignificant compared to the work that the Arts Council did for our community and bringing arts to everyone in the community, including, of course, our children. So I just wanted to let folks know that that was a wonderful event to attend on behalf of the council, and I know that the Arts Council is planning on doing something to recognize their achievements sometime in the upcoming year or next year. I also wanted to mention and thank the Friends of the Library and the Silver City Museum Society for everything that they do for both our library and the museum. And I wanted to just recognize the fact that the Friends of the Library and the Silver City Museum Society are independent 501c3 membership-based organizations that were created by local citizens to support the library and the museum, respectively. And we are so appreciative of the time that they spend volunteering to these organizations and raising funds for both the library and the museum. And speaking of fundraisers, the Silver City Museum Society is bringing Baxter Black to Silver City. He's a cowboy poet and humorist. He'll be here on October 12th, and he'll be performing at the WNMU Fine Arts Center Theater. So for tickets to attend something that will benefit the society and eventually the Silver City Museum, please go to the Silver City Museum. You can call or visit them, and tickets are also on sale at Alado Gelato. And the last thing I wanted to mention is I was fortunate today to, as the director at Western New Mexico University, to be the first site where filming was done here in Grant County on a production called The X Species. They are here in town for the next month, spending their money in town, in lodging, in rent, in food. There'll be cast and crew here in town. And I just want to make sure that you all know that they already feel very, very welcome. They were really happy that they chose Silver City in Grant County as one of their production sites and filming sites. And look to find out more about it. It'll be intriguing. The University Museum was just a location, and it was fun to be part of that. So we look forward to seeing more of what they're going to do here in town. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cook.
No comment.
Thank you. Councilor Wright. No comment. Thank you. Councilor Morales.
Mr. Mayor, no comment.
There you go, Councilor Bedison. Councilor Bedison used up all our time, so I'll move on.
Thank you.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes of the regular meeting, September 24th, 2013.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor.
I move to approve the regular minutes of the town council meeting of, the minutes of the regular meeting of the town council, September 24th, 2013.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second it. There's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? There's a motion and a second to approve and no discussion. We are approving the regular meeting minutes of the Silver City Town Council of September 24th, 2013. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is under reports. We'll start with an update on the progress of the safeguarding abandoned mines on Boston Hill project by Ken Romig of Decker, Parrish, and Sabatini. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors. I appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight. My name is Ken Romig. I am employed by Decker, Parrish, Sabatini, a multidisciplinary firm, mostly of architects, but also of landscape architects, of which I am one. Some other structural engineers, interior designers. I'm the project manager for the plan and design for safeguarding abandoned mine features on Boston Hill. Just really quickly, I'd like to introduce my team, who have been diligent, very diligent, last 4 days in a field design meeting. I'd like to introduce John Kretzman and James Smith of the AML program. I'd also like to introduce Noah Shumate, also of DPS, Tim Karpoff with Karpoff and Associates, Jen Pepe and Tom Weitz with Golder and Associates, Joseph Gendron he's an independent community liaison for us and an advocate, always an advocate for Boston Hill. I'm also appreciative of all the public that attended our field design meeting. We had good attendance and a lot of quality conversation. I'll start off really quickly. Before I go further, I want to apologize to the public for not having arranged this to be seen by the public. I will definitely take that and try to have it available to the public in the future. The councilmen and councilpersons do have it at hand. The agenda, we're going to just quickly address the purpose of, and again, mention what the AML program does in terms of purpose and its priorities. We're going to talk about our findings to date, what our status of the project is in terms of mapping, as well as the environmental and recreational resources that we all know about, and stakeholder concerns that we've heard up to this point. We'll also talk about the field design meeting number 1, the design goals that came out of that meeting, a lot of the possibilities and opportunities, management challenges, and conceptual designs. The Abandoned Mine Land Program is enacted by the 1977 Surface Mining and Reclamation Control Act, which allows for a fund of money on existing, a taxation on existing coal mines in the state to allow for the safeguarding of abandoned mines statewide. Their first priority is to protect public health, safety, and property from immediate hazards. The second is to protect public from less immediate hazards. And the third priority is to restore lands of water degraded by historic mining practices. We are currently in the plan phase, the second phase of our project. Our assessment phase is 90% complete, and each time we go out on Boston Hill, we find more to record and more to note. It's sort of a bottomless pit of not to use or to make fun of that in any manner, but there are a lot of issues out there. Secondly, we're in the plan phase where we've had a public meeting, and currently we've completed 2 field design meetings intended to involve the public in the collaborative design of safeguarding measures that fit with community sentiment. And then finally, there will be a design phase and a construction administration phase. And before you, there's a current map of the of Boston Hill. The green is Boston Hill open space proper. Around the periphery of the open space is blue. That's BLM properties, and we have a variety of private landowners that butt up against Boston Hill, including Grand County and the Western New Mexico University properties. It should be mentioned also that AML works on private lands as much as it works on public lands, and the red line that surrounds the Boston open space is our study area. So in many ways, we're encompassing those lands that are perceived as open space or city-owned open space, including the legal tender complex, which is a very difficult and complex abandoned mine, which we've been grappling with all week. The second image you'll see there is the mapping, or I believe that's the 6th slide, mapping that reveals the hazards that we've encountered, including the shafts and adits, and their relative hazard in a ranking of blue to red, depending on whether you can fall in and crawl out, whether there's no fall potential. There are also in that map a series of red outlines which indicate high walls that you're familiar with, the pits and that sort of thing. What is missing in this large-scale map is the legal tender, which is the complex I mentioned. It is too small to see at this scale. The next slide, slide 7, is the legal tender, and we've attempted to preliminary enumerate the hazards associated with the legal tender mine. While we were out there, the numbers of features probably doubled because we noticed a lot of things we hadn't noticed in the past, and really discussed in depth how to safeguard the features we're seeing in a manner that fits with community sentiment. There are many hazards associated with the features, including rockfall, collapsing soils, falling from heights, trips and slips, and air quality. The graphic is, there are also different areas on this map. Let's just look at the primary fenced portion to the left. If Feature number 6 is, might be referring to that as the Coliseum, just because it might just roll off my tongue. But that's a very complex feature. Then there are entries, a majority of entries across the site, where you can access by just walking into the features, and that would be number 1 and 3. And then there's the Long Trench, I believe that is number 11, which extends to the south. Next slide, our findings in terms of environmental and recreational resources is that we have a lot of habitat out there. We have owl habitat, we have bat habitat, we have mammal habitat, and they are all using the caves. They are all using the abandoned mine features. We are very cognizant of this, and we want to take this into account in all our safeguarding features. And of course, the recreational resources are astounding. They are second to none in terms of their beauty and their value. And there are safeguarding measures that are used as recreational spaces. And I'm showing a picture, the public can't see this, but I'm showing a picture of bicyclists riding over the netted pit. The next slide number 9, has to do with our stakeholder findings. And I'd just like to, I'll just say these out loud so the public can hear what we're saying. The AML program recognizes that Boston Hill is a community resource and that there are diverse opinions regarding the appropriate safeguarding measures that respect landowner prerogatives and reflect community sentiment. Secondly, we found that stakeholders want to protect the environment and the heritage values. Both public and private landowners want safeguarding measures on their land, including BLM, as we noted, owns a portion of legal tender, and private landowners that own a portion of legal tender. Residents feel more comfortable in Boston Hill the more they use it. That's kind of a no-brainer. And finally, that indiscriminate trail development is diminishing the enjoyment of Boston Hill. The field design meeting in slide number 10 was all about a robust discussion about what safeguarding measures are appropriate and discussing who we are safeguarding these mines for. It was determined we are safeguarding for some of the most diligent of us, the most law-abiding, and those that are not so. The field design meeting was well attended, and we spent 4 days here. There are some management challenges on slide number 11, including that anything that is built for safeguarding purposes will require some monitoring, some understanding that the measures do degrade over time. I hope that there will be a volunteer group in the future, and there are citizens here tonight that support our work, and I hope they will someday become Friends of Boston Hill group. That could be a volunteer group that assists in the monitoring of the hill. We came to some goals of the safeguarding measures, including balancing the type of safeguarding improvements and the stakeholder values. Stakeholder values included preserving a visitor's sense of risk-taking when visiting Boston Hill, preserving the much-loved rugged landscape character of Boston Hill, protecting native plants and animal habitats, and creating improvements that consider all risk-taking behaviors. That speaks for itself. Possibilities and opportunities. Slide number 13 includes some pictures you're aware of that I've shown in the past, including low rock walls, bad cupolas, and a variety of bridges that are in town as well as at the catwalk that are precedents we use when designing safeguarding measures or measures to really thoroughly enjoy the environment of Boston Hill and the legal tender mine. Finally, we get to some images that we photoshopped. I think this is slide number 11, which indicates an entry to Boston Hill showing a rock bulkhead and a bat-compatible enclosure, which has a door on it, which allows you to enter into the workings if you are a bat biologist or something of that nature. This design has since changed to have the steel, at least we considered some changes, to have the steel go all the way up to the arc there, the stone arc, the existing stone arc, and the steel go all the way to the edges without the rock bulkhead, so that we'll be able to look into the mine in a better fashion. This is just a concept. It's just a concept, and so far, the public has responded very favorably to it. Secondly, you'll see a slide number 15, which indicates the conceptual design of the Coliseum, or big amphitheater we see on the north side. It's a very complex feature, and what I'm showing here is a net, a high tensile steel mesh, really, draped over the entire feature. There's been a lot of discussion about that, and I have to say that we haven't determined that's the best safeguarding measure. So there is a lot of public input that still is needed here, and a lot of discussion about safeguarding this feature from people who might get too close and fall off, or try to go down as a recreational caver and enter the mine workings, the underground mine workings. Related to that, you'll note that the chain link fencing is removed, which has been breached, and everyone recognizes, or at least the public recognizes, that the chain link fencing is not doing any good to keep people from the features. But removing the chain link fences, I think, is something everyone wanted to happen. And it was because it just didn't belong, and it just jarred people too much. And in fact, there was a lot of discussion about a fence creating an attractive nuisance, that you really want to see what's on the other side of that fence. So, in many instances, we are removing a good portion of the chain link fencing up there. The note number 16 shows a conceptual design of a mine entry with a bat-compatible enclosure and a small amphitheater to allow people to view the bats coming out in the evening. Finally, last but not least, there's slide number 17 indicates a bridge over the long trench and a net that could be associated with a trail or a looping trail around the entire legal tender feature. My last slide, before we get to questions, is about what the next steps will be for us. We'll be developing a schematic design and developing more of these photoshopped images that show the improvements we have considered and show the alternatives, and then coming to the public to share with stakeholders and seek more public input. From there, we'll be refining it to a point at which we can put it out to bid for a contractor. Then, of course, there are more phases that has us looking at construction and reviewing construction at the substantial completion. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Any questions?
What's the age, length of time that mesh can survive without breaking?
Well, the one that's currently out there has been slightly frayed, but it is still usable, and I think it's been, correct me if I'm wrong, John, 30 years? 25 years. 25 years. So there's only one portion of the mesh that has been affected by its rubbing against the stone. If we reduce those stone ledges as much as we can, we minimize that fraying of the steel mesh. So 25 years, and we're thinking about putting another layer of mesh on top of that existing, because it's so well used and well loved by the bikers. And of course, we want to keep them safe, so it would diminish the fraying slightly. Please, John Kretzmann would like to address you. Is that all right?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The high tensile strength steel mesh that is proposed for use on several of these openings is rated for over 100-year life in saltwater environments. So I'm pretty sure we have about a century with this newer material. It's better than the old cable nets that were used previously.
Part of your final report, does it include an estimate in today's dollars or whatever projections you use for maintenance?
Yes, it will.
Thanks. Has there been any talk about, you mentioned the trails just showing up, being just created by the public. Has there been discussion of how to address that issue within any of the groups?
There's been a lot of discussion. There has been no solution arrived at yet. Signage is our primary motivator, I think, at this point, and some of the signs have been plucked and thrown and sort of vandalized. So we could replace those signs, make them more robust. I think that would be the first solution.
Sounds like we've got a lot of work.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, staff reports. Mr. Brown.
Any reports?
Chief Bencomo. Chief Reynolds. I don't see anybody else. Huh? Anything from the legal department?
No, thank you.
Just want to make sure you're awake. Anything from the clerk's office that you'd like to report? Today's election day in Albuquerque. Aren't you glad you're not there?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You're good. Next on the agenda is a public hearing entitled Approval Disapproval of an Application for an Extension of Water Service Outside Town Limits. Request is to extend a 6-inch water line to serve 4 undeveloped residential lots located just north of Oakwood Estates between Oakwood Avenue and Sandalwood Avenue. Applicant authorized representative is Michael Gisto. Property owners Michael R. Gisto and Adele J. Gisto. The town council will serve as the hearing board, and I, as the mayor, will be the presiding officer. Have any members of this hearing board had ex parte discussion with any person regarding the subject matter of this hearing, or had any communication from any party to this case?
No, sir.
Hearing none, you're all qualified. Will all parties and witnesses intending to testify, including those staff members who intend to present testimony or who will be available for questioning, please rise and come to the podium to be sworn in by the town clerk. If you have not been sworn, you will not be permitted to testify or otherwise participate in this hearing.
Would you please print your name and address? raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Myra Webster, do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony I am about to give in the matter before this council is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Under penalty of perjury.
The hearing will be conducted as follows. The town staff shall present a brief synopsis of the application based on the application or actions taken by the department head or any town staff. Then the applicant shall present their case. Next will come witnesses in support of the applicant's case. The applicant, staff, or witnesses may then be questioned by the hearing board. The presiding officer will then ask the applicant if that concludes its case in chief and states that the proponent and its witnesses will remain available to be further questioned by the hearing board, by staff, or by opponents to the application. Following the close of the applicant's case, witnesses in opposition to the applicant's case shall be permitted to testify, during the course of which the witness may address questions to any previous witness, but such questions shall be made through the presiding officer. The presiding officer shall have the sole discretion in directing the question for response, considering whether the question is relevant, is cumulative to other testimony, or is otherwise inappropriate. At the close of testimony against the application, the presiding officer will ask the applicant, is there anything else you wish to be reflected in the record? And then we will go to the board. Mr. Escada.
Mayor and Council, what you have before you is a request for approval, disapproval of an application for extension of water service outside town limits. As stated, the request is to extend a 6-inch water line to serve 4 undeveloped residential lots located just north of Oakwood Estates between Oakwood Avenue and Sandalwood Avenue. The request is for approval of the extension of city water and sewer to serve the 4 residential lots owned by Michael Augusto and Adele Augusto, husband and wife. The location, the proposed water and sewer extensions will be located in the ETZ and will serve the following lots located just north of Oakwood subdivision. Tract 1, a tract of land situated in a portion of the Franklin Lode Mining Claim, Section 5 and 4, Township 18 South, Range 14 West, in Grant County, New Mexico. Tract 2, a tract of land situated in a portion of the Franklin Lode Mining Claim and the Dewey Lode Mining Claim, Section 5 and 4, Township 18 South, Range 14 West, in Grant County, New Mexico. Tract 3, a tract of land situated in a portion of the Franklin Lode Mining Claim and the Dewey Lode Mining Claim, Section 5 and 4, Township 18 South, Range 14 West, Grant County, New Mexico. And Tract 4, a tract of land situated in a portion of the Franklin Lode Mining Claim, Section 5 and 4, Township 18 South, Range 14 West, in Grant County, New Mexico. Together with 30-foot easement from Sandalwood Avenue along the southern border of the tracts of land. The description: the proposed extensions will commence at the north end of Oakwood Avenue and extend to the north end of Sandalwood Avenue along an existing 30-foot easement. The extension will create a loop and will consist of approximately 900 lineal feet of ductile iron pipe. In addition, the applicant is proposing to extend city sewer to the same 4 residential lots. The sewer extension, the sewer extension will commence at the north end of Oakwood Avenue and will extend to the furthest lot along the same 30-foot easement. The sewer extension will consist of approximately 876 lineal feet of 8-inch PVC pipe. The analysis. The applicant has completed the required application for extension of water service in which he has complied with all requests from the town of Silver City. It has been determined that the anticipated water use of the 4 residential lots will be 1 1/3 acre feet per year. The disposal of residential liquid waste will be handled by means of connection to the town of Silver City's sewer system. The applicant has proposed extending the existing sewer infrastructure along the same avenue as the water infrastructure. The applicant has submitted preliminary plans and specifications for both the water and sewer systems prepared by Weber Engineering, a professional engineering firm. A water impact study was also prepared by Weber Engineering and was submitted by the applicant to determine whether any improvements to the existing water system were necessary to accommodate the extension. The evaluation found that no improvements to the existing water system are needed. The study also determined that the loop created by the Justo water extension will improve fire flows in the north end of Sandalwood by 40 GPM. The study recommended that houses built on the 4 residential lots be built at the lowest reasonable elevation in each lot, and each lot shall install check valves on individual service lines to prevent draining during hydrant use or testing. The applicant has agreed to the recommendations. Also, a sewer impact study was prepared by Weber Engineering and was required of the applicant to assure that there is adequate capacity of the town's existing sewer infrastructure to accommodate the added flow volume. The evaluation found that the existing sewer and sewer lift station system will support the addition of 4 residential lots. In terms of public notification, legal advertisement was advertised, and I need to correct that, in the Silver City Daily Press on September 20th, 2013, which met the required 15-day publication notification of public hearing. The legal notice was also published on the town's webpage beginning September 20th, 2013. The applicant was sent a certified letter on September 24th, 2013, which met the 10-day prior notification of the public hearing by the applicant. Also, written notice was provided to the Grant County Commission. Findings. The town of Silver City currently owns 4,566.64 acre feet. Based on 2012 pumping totals, the town produced approximately 2,527.14 acre feet of water, or 55.34% of its water rights. The 10-year average for water production is 2,720.29 acre feet, or 59.57%. The request does not affect the town's required water reserve of 456 acre feet, or 10%. The request is for less than the 10% maximum allowed of the town's remaining unused water rights. The proposed use of the water is residential. The general location of the 4 residential lots is Section 4 and 5 of Township 18 South, Range 14 West, Grant County, New Mexico, and encompasses approximately 19.176 acres. The residential lots will dispose of liquid waste by means of a gravity source system, which will connect to the town's existing source infrastructure. The water impact study completed by Weber Engineering demonstrates that there will be no adverse effects on the existing infrastructure and no adverse effect on existing users in terms of pressure or flow. The sewer impact study completed by Weber Engineering demonstrates that there will be no adverse impacts to the existing sewer infrastructure as well. Since the request is for 4 residential lots, no fiscal analysis was required. The applicant, who will be responsible for the cost to extend the water and sewer, will be required to provide a letter of credit to the town of Silver City to assure that the proposed water and sewer extensions will be completed prior to the sale of the lots in the amount of 125% of the estimated cost of the extensions. This will meet the financial fitness requirement. Recommendations. The Town of Silver City's Utilities Department recommends approval of the application by Michael Gusto for the extension of water outside city limits to serve 4 residential lots located just north of the Oakwood Estates subdivision based on the findings listed above and the conditions of approval listed below. The conditions: final plans and specifications be stamped by a professional engineer and approved by the Town of Silver City Utilities Department prior to construction. The applicant will be required to complete a work order allowing construction to begin. The applicant will also provide a letter of credit to the Town of Silver City to assure that the proposed water and sewer extensions are constructed prior to the sale of the lots. The applicant or subsequent lot owners will be required to make full payment of fees prior to connection to the water and sewer systems. Construction of the water and sewer infrastructure shall commence at the designated point of connection to the existing water and sewer infrastructure of the town. Houses built on the 4 individual lots shall be built at the lowest reasonable elevation in each lot and shall install check valves on the individual service lines. All representations made in the application are true and correct and survive the execution of the final water agreement and are incorporated herein, and provide a half-time inspector during construction of the water and sewer line extensions to make sure that they're installed properly. Any questions?
Mr. Scarpa.
At the time of completion of the water lines extension and the sewer extensions, will they be accepted into the town?
Yes.
So, also, is there, will the applicant be paying for all the construction costs of the water line and the sewer line?
Yes.
Okay, should that be reflected in the recommendation that applicant is responsible for all costs incurred as a result of the construction of the referenced water and sewer line extensions?
That can be added.
Okay. Do you want to have any language, when you talk about the fees, shall pay all fees, are we talking about the...
Water and sewer connections, the
water
individual lot
acquisition fee?
connections, yes.
Because and that's, there's, the water acquisition fees for out-of-town, requests is equal to the value of 1/3 acre-foot per year per water right multiplied by the number of residences to be served. Is that the formula that you'll be applying?
Yeah, each lot will be paying the water and sewer hookup fees individually.
Okay, and that's under the formula of that's Article 4 of Chapter 52.
Yeah, it's a similar process that we handle any new connections by residential lots.
And is that the 1/3?
Yes,
So that applies in town and also in the ETZ?
yes,
Okay, fine. Thank you, that's all the questions I have.
Robert,
yes.
can you give me some education here and give me the brief definitions of static pressure, residual pressure, and fire flow?
Okay, static pressure is the amount of pressure in the system at steady conditions, meaning limited demand, with no like fire flows or anything like that. It's the pressure within the system at any given time, without like a fire flows existing or something like that. The residual flow, when the fire department does fire hydrant testing, is the residual pressure within the system with the fire hydrant open, meaning what the pressure will be within the system in that area when a fire hydrant is open and freely flowing. What was the other one? Oh, fire flow. That's the expected rate of flow that a fire hydrant can put out per minute in the event of a fire.
For what length of time?
Well, the flow is given in per minute. So, if a fire hydrant can put out 500 GPM, it's 500 gallons per minute when fully open.
We're gonna come back to that, but we'll move on for right now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Gisto, would you like to present your case?
I think it'd be a benefit to the community to have this growth, and, hello? Mayor and council? Thank you. I think it'd be a benefit to the community and the town to have this growth and have these fees added to the city council, city coffers. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any opponents to the application? Okay, that was quick, but we're going to go back to my previous questioning. When you look at Table 1, the fire hydrant readings provided by Silver City Fire Department existing system, on north end of Sandalwood, we're not currently able to provide decent fire flows.
Correct. And the reason for that, when Oakwood Estates was designed, they initially designed it with booster pumps. The booster pumps are smaller booster pumps to maintain the static pressure and daily needs of the subdivision. During fire flows, what happens is the booster pumps can't meet that flow, they can't pump as much, and so the water is bypassed. The way it was designed, the water bypasses the booster pumps and free flows from the tanks to the fire hydrants within the system. That continues to be the way the system works in that area. One of the things that we can definitely look at in the future to improve the fire flows in that entire area is to go with improved booster pumps at the booster station there at the Oakwood Estates. And keep in mind, phase 1 of the Oakwood Estates subdivision does not require the booster pumps. It's the second phase that required the use of the booster pumps.
So does this expose the town when there's a water system that is accepted by the town into our system, and we've got a fire hydrant within an acceptable range of the spread of fire hydrants, and we're not providing correct fire flows, and it doesn't appear that we would be able to provide fire flows to the 4 additional connections?
The fire flows in that area, and I believe looking back at the water study, actually by looping the Sandalwood and Oakwood water lines would actually improve the flow by about 40 GPM. So there'll be an improvement in the area by doing so. As far as meeting the fire flows, ideally it's recommended that you have at least 500 GPM, and of course it's all dependent on how densely populated a community is and what have you. But in this situation, it's not making things worse. It's actually a slight improvement in that area, and it's something that we can look at in the future, as far as doing improvements with the booster pumps to make sure that we can meet those fire flows in that area.
So are those fire flows dependent on the level in the water tanks?
Okay, now Oakwood Estates is relatively close to the chloride tanks, and by gravity, because of the elevation of the chloride tanks in reference to the Oakwood Estates subdivision, pressure is dictated by difference in elevation. So being that Oakwood Estates doesn't have very much elevation difference to the base elevation of the tanks, that's why there's not as much pressure as in town.
So I go back to, it's now July, it's fire season, it's the middle of the day, and the tanks are low because you're pumping mostly at night.
Well, can I answer that? And, when the scenario you gave, middle of summer, hottest time of the day, we actually don't just pump at night. We actually run a little bit into peak time in the morning. We don't shut the pumps off at 8 o'clock. We let them go till 10, sometimes maybe in 12 o'clock in the day, because we want to maintain a minimum tank elevation or tank level. We want to make sure our tanks are at 70% full at all times.
Do we have a log to show that?
Excuse me?
Do we have a log to show that?
Yes, our SCADA system actually tracks the elevation, shows historical trends and data.
So, my next question goes, it's kind of along this line, but through the transition of these properties, with the current water system, with the improvement, you're at 237 GPM on fire flow, the standard is 500. When the lot's developed, the water and sewer goes in, all the utilities are in, and it gets sold, how does the buyer know that he is purchasing a home or land to build his home that may have substandard fire protection?
That I'm not certain. Of. The only thing, and it's maybe a question for Rudy, but one of the things that the fire department does do is, if you look around town, the fire hydrants are color coded. So, and it's more for the fire department's use, so that they know when they pull up to a fire hydrant how much flow to expect out of that particular hydrant, whether it's sub 500, 500 to 1,000, 1,000 to 1,500, or 1,500 or higher. But as far as individual people buying lots, knowing how much fire flow to anticipate from a fire hydrant, unless they come in and specifically ask us or the fire department, there's no real way for them to know.
And we don't have an obligation to provide the 500 as long as we mark the hydrant right and disclose it if asked?
Well, keep in mind it's outside city limits. So as far as fire protection, it's outside city limits. So we don't necessarily have that requirement to provide fire protection, but because of the mutual aid agreement, the town will respond to fires in that area.
But we're accepting the system into our water system, which gives us some exposure legally to provide what we agree to provide. So even though it's outside the town and we're not required to respond to the fire, that fire department, that homeowner, that insurance company that insured the home is counting on some level of safety for their investment. And I don't know if Robert wants to try to help me with this, but the fact that it's out of town is more concerning to me than if it were in town, where we have stricter obligations to supply. When we stick another asset and a resource out in the county where we're not obligated to provide service, and then we don't meet the minimum standard in providing it, that concerns me.
Our law and our liability follows the water. So the liability out of town would be the same as the liability in town. So whatever issues whatever you're doing with this proposal, any weaknesses, ignore the fact that it's out of town, except that by extending the water, there's an economic reason for that, as well as, and probably economic would be maybe even a priority, because it's not an internal infilling of infrastructure for the town. So why are you extending it out of town? Fundamentally, it's an economic reason. So balance the economic value to the liability that comes with it. What's the liability? You already mentioned that there's a potential of having under pressure line. I know it's also a 6-inch line, which is large for 4 lots. So is that an anticipation of further development? And if it's an anticipation of further development, when that further development occurs, you're going to be faced with, well, do we need to put in more capacity? Do you need to put in more booster pumps? Things like that. Maybe that's part of the long-term plan. I don't know. But is your primary concern that you're putting in substandard water pressure? And there is an obligation that if you adopt something into the city's integrated network, and if it doesn't meet minimum standards for fire protection, you've got a problem. It doesn't matter if you notify the homeowner, well, you know, you're buying a house with substandard city water pressure. An argument could be made that I'm paying for water pressure and it should be at recommended standards, which is 500 gallons per minute. And I don't know if there's ever been an assessment of the town making sure that every neighborhood has 500. In my neighborhood, I remember when that trailer on Cottage Sand caught fire, I didn't have any water, and I live on Little Walnut. So I don't know if there's some general plan, and you'd have to defer to the department head about whether this is appropriate or not. And I would defer unless there's some legal standard that I'm not aware of that says that it's okay to give half of the recommended water pressure in any given situation. I don't know if that's part of the law, or whether it's recommendations, or whether it's actual law. What's the quality? I know we have water quality. We have to deliver water that is properly treated. But as far as pressure, I don't know.
Well, and I think it does matter whether it's in town or not, because if you're providing for domestic use and the neighborhood is in crisis because of a contaminated well, going in initially with a lower fire flow into the neighborhood to serve the domestic use might be worth a risk that the town would be willing to bear, where out in the county, that's not our responsibility. We don't own that.
The only reason that I'm going this far in my comments is because in the law, when you make your decision, a decision to grant a water main extension shall be supported by the following findings, which shall be supported by substantial evidence. Number 1, the grant shall not degrade or otherwise diminish the quality of service to the existing users of the town's water system. 2, the grant will be in accordance with the terms and conditions prescribed in this article, and Robert's taken care of that. 3, the grant will benefit the health, safety, and welfare of both the town and its surrounding areas. So there is a finding that not only will it benefit the town, but it will benefit the surrounding area. But the very first finding that has to be made must be that it will not degrade the existing system of the town. And the evidence it has to be supported by substantial evidence. Now, if you feel that there's been substantial evidence to support that finding that it will not degrade the existing infrastructure, then you have no problem. When you make your decision, yay or nay, add the conditions that you want, then you'll be referring it to me, and I've got 10 days to write the written decision. And the written decision will then be served on the applicant, who will then enter into an agreement with the town. And that agreement will mention things like that he's got to pay, that he's got to comply with the law, provide the necessary financial guarantees, and any of the conditions that you mentioned here. We haven't had a lot of water line extension applications under this new ordinance.
I just wanted to clarify some stuff with the chief that I figured was the truth. First of all, considering that it's in the county, the primary response, initial response, is from the Tyrone Water Association, which have the pumper trucks. Not pumper trucks, but the tankers, water tankers. And so they will be initially, their initial response will be from the pumper trucks, which have their own water source and water pressures. Secondary response will be from the town of Silver City, whereby we will respond, and our trucks have the ability to increase the water pressure to get the water from the water line to the structure. Now, what has happened, for instance, the one issue that you had, back when we had the big fires and we couldn't get enough water pressure up to that one residence, the fire department actually contacted the utilities department, and to increase the pressure, they actually cut off other parts of town to increase pressure for that one fire situation, to get additional water to the site. I don't think it was an issue of water, actual water.
No, what happened in that instance, Alex, is we just opened a bypass valve on the PRV, which limited the amount of flow in from the upper W Mountain Zone into the lower W Mountain Zone, and we bypassed that, which increased the flow going into that situation.
So
We didn't cut off anybody. Yeah.
Saying you adjusted the system.
Yeah.
To. Yeah, and the layman people are the ones watching.
And the user who had a trickle of water coming out of his kitchen sink.
It was for a good cause.
I agree.
Councilor Rose.
Mr. Mayor, on kind of in the same vein a little bit, Mr. Esqueda, you had mentioned that for some of the other existing properties that flow would actually improve. How many properties do you know of, or approximately, or would be improved?
That would be in the area of Oakwood and Sandalwood, in that northern portion of the subdivision.
Do you have an idea of how many residents are served?
About 15 to 20.
By accepting maybe a little bit of risk on 4 properties, we would probably be reducing our risk on 15 potential properties. So we're actually coming out probably a little ahead on reducing our risks over time.
Yeah, yes. And one of the things that as Alex mentioned, is the fire trucks have the capacity with their booster pumps on the truck to pull additional water from the fire hydrants. Keep in mind that the fire flow is free-flowing fire hydrant based on the amount of pressure in the system. But if the fire trucks connect to the fire system, they can actually draw more water from the fire hydrant.
Councilor Bettis.
Councilor Scavron, one of those conditions, or at least findings that we have to meet, is that if, I think you read, I think it was the third one, is that it has to benefit the health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding area, correct? We're talking primarily about the first.
The grant will benefit the health, safety, and welfare of both the town and its surrounding areas. That is one of the three findings that you have to make. The first finding is that it shall not degrade or otherwise diminish the quality of service to the existing users of the town's water system.
I guess, in the same vein, I'm just slightly concerned about the safety issue. I mean, while we'll still have risk with at least 4 homes that will go in there, and it is something that we're including in our system. Most people, when they see a fire hydrant nearby or something like that, they readily assume that, that it's going to mean that there'll always be water available, and in the case of an emergency. And it just concerns me with the water, with the fire flow. I know we've had that discussion. I just, I think it's something that's important to consider. One of the questions I have for you, Mr. Scarra, is you said something about further down at some point, is it the town that would have to do, did you say more booster pumps or something like that? Is that the town's responsibility? Or is that Oakwood Estates that would have to do that? Or is that something that we would have to do in the future?
It would be something that the town would take the responsibility on, because years ago, when Oakwood Estates was developed, the town accepted that system as part of its own.
So by accepting this in particular or any further additions, we would continue to have that burden to continue to upgrade that system, even though currently, if this was put in, it would not meet the minimum standard that you expressed of 500.
Right. Now, keep in mind, even if this was not to go in, and we wanted to make the necessary improvements in that area, one of the things that would come of those improvements would be to do this loop.
Thank you.
Councilor Coleman.
Well, when I look at my map here, I see a lot of little lots that have homes on them, but then I look at these 4 lots, and they're big. What are the chances of those being subdivided into smaller lots at a different time and more homes put where more water usage and flow and fire?
There's a provision in this ordinance, notwithstanding any other provision of this section, in no event shall the town be obligated to approve any application if a finding be made that the proposed services will be detrimental to the future development of the town or the maintenance of the health, safety, and welfare. It also states that there is no presumption of future granting of any subdivision or service to any lot. So if one of the lots was subdivided, they would still have to get another connection, a water acquisition from that line, and that could be denied. And that could be one of the conditions, that there shall be no further subdivision of these lots.
Or it could just stay in the application process.
Right. Is that correct, Robert? You have no obligation to accept somebody's water acquisition fee and automatically give them a water line.
Correct.
So the opportunity is there to stop it.
Go ahead.
I thought of something. I thought the discussion was going on. Thank you for letting me address you. The lots are already there, and Mr. Justo has owned them since 1996. I think he purchased them. The fire hydrants are already there, existing, and the town currently maintains that system and has control of that water system. So even if the application isn't approved, he can still proceed with selling his lots and houses being built there, and I think there's still some of that same risk that you're discussing, whether or not he does get to connect to the system. Really connecting to the system just, increases the attractiveness of his, for his benefit, it increases the attractiveness of his lots, and connecting to the sewer also just makes it more appealing for a buyer. So whether he sells it with or without the water connection and the sewer connection, those lots still currently exist right next to those fire hydrants. So I don't think that whether that extension gets to go in or not changes the way that people see that fire hydrant. When they put their house in, they still see that fire hydrant sitting over there, whether they're connected to the system or not. So that just kind of crossed my mind, not to be belligerent, but just it just crossed my mind as the discussion was going on. And then one of the things I was thinking of also was what Robert brought up, that the pumper trucks can pull more. When the fire hydrant tests the fire department tests the fire hydrants, they just open the valve and the water just gushes out, and they measure, what's just free flowing out of the opening. So when the truck connects, they can actually pull in addition to what the, free flow is. So there is more capacity, although it probably doesn't reach that 500 ideally, but there is a little bit more ability to pull more water through the system.
So, I'm not quite sure if this is irrelevant. I'm the one that gets to determine if it is, but I'm not an engineer, but you cannot pull through a soft hose. If you pull through a soft hose, the hose will collapse. And if you hook up, there was already mention of having a negative pressure in the line in an area. So your points are very good about the hydrants are there, the land is there. If it's not approved, he puts in wells and he puts in septic tanks, which are additional issues within the area of concern of the town. But I think the fire flow is the fire flow. The fire truck can increase the pressure, but not if they're sucking water. Robert's not going to be happy. Any other discussion? Mr. Gisto? Is there anything else you wish to be reflected in the record, or does that conclude your case? Thank you. Does any member of the hearing board have any questions for any witness?
No, sir.
Is the hearing board prepared to consider this application and render its decision?
Yes, sir.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor.
I move to approve the application for an extension of water service outside town limits. Request is to extend a 6-inch water line to serve 4 undeveloped residential lots located just north of Oakwood Estates between Oakwood Avenue and Sandalwood Avenue. Applicant, authorized representative, Michael Guisto, property owners Michael Guisto and Adele Guisto.
Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the application. Mr. Scavron, should we include the adoption of the staff report and engineering reports?
That plus the conditions that I mentioned, that the applicant is responsible for the construction costs.
That's in the report.
It's not in the report. It says it only says that he's supposed to provide a guarantee for the construction costs, but it does not. It leaves vague whether it goes with it. All right, that he pays for it, but he also has to put up a letter of credit or a bond or something equal to 125% of the cost to guarantee the fulfillment of the construction. So The first premise is he pays for everything. The second premise is that he puts up a guarantee that it will all get paid.
So the motion should include the adoption of the staff
The
report.
adoption of the staff report, you should also state that you can say in addition to the staff report, to clear up any ambiguity, that the applicant is responsible for all costs of the construction of both extensions, the sewer and the water. And you might also say, and will comply with the relevant provisions of Chapter 52, Article 4. And that way we don't have to include every requirement, because there are a lot of requirements in that are not mentioned in the staff report. So by encompassing the fact, making an acknowledgement that he has to comply with Chapter 52, Article 4, I think that'll be the catch-all. That'll be fine. And then after you vote, if it's in favor, then you'll direct me to write a report, a decision, and I'll circulate it to the council before it gets mailed out.
So we would amend the motion to the existing plus the adoption of all the staff reports, and in a condition that the applicant is responsible for all associated construction costs as requested, and must comply with Chapter 52, Article 4. Is that a friendly amendment? Councilor Cook?
Yes, it's friendly. Do I have to reread it?
Who made the second? Is that friendly, Councilor Morris?
Yes, sir.
We have an amended motion. Is there any other discussion? There's a motion and a second and no further discussion to approve an application for an extension of water service outside town limits. Request is to extend a 6-inch water line to serve 4 undeveloped residential lots located just north of Oakwood Estates between Oakwood Avenue and Sandalwood Avenue. Applicant authorized representative is Michael Gisto, property owners Michael R. Gisto and Adele J. Gisto. Additionally, the staff reports are adopted, and condition added that the applicant is responsible for all costs associated with construction requested in the application and must comply with Chapter 52, Article 4 of the Town Code. Do we have to do a roll call?
Excuse me. If it's to be passed, it has to be by supermajority.
Roll call.
Council Edison? Aye. Council Cook?
Aye.
Council Wright?
Aye.
Council Morales?
Aye.
Motion carries. Application is granted by supermajority. Councilor Bedison.
Mr. Mayor, I move for a short break.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll be in recess. We call this meeting back to order, and the next item on the agenda under new business, item A, approval, disapproval of 2 public celebration permit applications for the Biketoberfest, a fundraiser for Bike Works at 820 North Bullard Street, Silver City, New Mexico, on October 18th, 2013, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., sponsored by Energy Ideal, the Bike Works. Liquor license holder information is Little Toad Creek Brewery, license number 67021, and Little Toad Creek Distillery, license number 63004. Owner name Little Toad Creek LLC, 1122 Highway 35, Members, New Mexico, 88049. I didn't say croak.
Mayor Marshall and Town Council, thank you. I wanted to take note of all the great opportunities that this town comes together for fundraising, for local organizations and charities, and I just wanted to invite Claire Catlett up for a moment that she would like to make a mention about such things.
Good evening, Town Council. I'm here from the Gila Conservation Coalition to thank the town of Silver City for the 9th annual Gila River Festival, which was September 18th through 22nd this past month. And we wanted to thank the town especially for the lodger's tax funds that were used for advertising. We were able to bring in local and outside tourism from across the state and the Southwest region.
To the agenda?
Yes, I couldn't get on the agenda. I'm sorry.
She's not been on.
And if I don't say thank you now, it's not as important. So, the rest of the thank yous go out towards the fire marshal, Javelina and Polly Cook, Little Toad Creek Brewery, and we'd also like to thank the police for escorting our monsoon puppet parade. And also note that over 1,500 participants were there, and although we haven't tallied the funds that we gained, it was a very successful fundraiser for our organization. And also to mark your calendars for next year's 10th annual Gila River Festival, it'll be September 18th through 21st, 2014. This is our 10th annual Gila River Festival, and we'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Act, as well as the 90th anniversary of the Gila Wilderness, which is our state's first free-flowing rivers wilderness, and then also our state's last free-flowing rivers home. So we just want to note that this will be a very special celebration next year. Thank you.
The excerpt of that was to talk about fundraising and how it benefits our local community, which is why I'm here today to ask permission for this special celebration. The 18th marks the beginning of the fall break through public schools, and we wanted to promote biking and other cyclist activities with the children and their families with a kickoff celebration the night of Friday the 18th. We will be promoting bike activities, bike education, and we will be having music and spirits to raise money for the Bike Works and to kick off a week of work days that can include the children to help Bike Works improve their infrastructure at the 820 North Bullard branch location.
Anybody else like to speak? Seeing none? Any comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve of 2 public celebration permits applications for the Biketoberfest, a fundraiser for Bike Works at 820 North Bullard Street, Silver City, New Mexico, on October 18, 2013, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., sponsored by Energy Ideal, the Bike Works. Liquor license holder, Little Toad Creek Brewery, license number 67021, and Little Toad Creek Distillery, license number 63004, owner name Little Toad Creek LLC, 1122 Highway 35, Mimbres, New Mexico, 88049.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second and no discussion to approve 2 public celebration permit applications for the Biketoberfest, a fundraiser for Bike Works at 820 North Bullard Street, Silver City, New Mexico, on October 18, 2013, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., sponsored by Energy Ideal, the Bike Works. Liquor license holder information, Little Toad Creek Brewery, license number 67021, and Little Toad Creek Distillery, license number 63004, owner name Little Toad Creek LLC at 1122 Highway 35, members New Mexico 88049. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And I did not say Little Crook. Wow. Next item on the agenda is approval, disapproval of resolution number 2013-35, authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement and intercept agreement by and between the town of Silver City and the New Mexico Finance Authority in the principal amount of $764,950 for the purpose of financing the cost of purchasing equipment for Scott Park Baseball and Soccer Complex for use by the governmental unit. Mr. Brown.
Mayor and Council, this is the loan that we've been working on with the Finance Authority to install the lighting and safety netting at the Scott Park sports complex. We also have an additional $175,000 in legislative allocation that was awarded to the town. We have received the contracts for that is specifically for lights, and we have an additional $100,000 that is for upgrades at the sports complex. So with all those funds, we plan on doing all the lighting, the safety netting, get the electrical to where the future concession stand bathrooms are going to be, as well as we are going to install the ADA access sidewalks and such that will go through the sports complex, because right now the access for wheelchairs and strollers is one of the few issues that we've had to address and complained about over the last year. This is a 15-year loan. The annual debt service will be approximately $62,000.
Anybody in the audience like to comment? Seeing none, Council?
I have a question.
Councilor Bedison.
Alex, is this on, I said this the number one, or is this? That's, okay, so this is the number one project that we had on ISIP that we just, okay. That's what I wanted to make sure, and debt service is something that we can accommodate in our budget, correct?
Yes, in fact, the 2011 bonds, as of next year when the debt service for this will be starting, the portion that was refinanced from some previous Finance Authority loans, which is approximately $200,000, will go away next year, and this is only going to be a portion of that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Cook.
Is this going to include bathrooms? Are there going to be bathrooms?
Not yet. This is working towards getting to the bathrooms. This is phase 2. Right now, what we're focusing on, the reason we're focusing on the lights is because being that the sports complex was such a large investment, and we've gotten so much request to use the facility, you just don't have enough time during the day to use it, so we need the lights, and which actually we're hoping to protect our investment, because the more people during day and night that we have out there, the more people in and out and protection we have for the facility. And, we have the temporary concession stand there, which is going to be ready and be able to have electricity and everything this next year. And then we're going to continue with the porta potties until we can do the actual bathrooms.
And we're going to plant more trees.
Plant trees.
Some bushes. It's the overflow. Any other discussion? Councilor Moronis?
Mr. Brown, the part of the gross receipts that we're going to be using to guarantee this, though, was that used to guarantee those loans that are just starting to come off the books?
Originally, yes. When we did the the bonds that I was talking about, that was we used the fourth increment of municipal gross receipts taxes for the dedication for the 2011 bonds, and and the state shared portion. When we refinanced everything, that freed up the third increment as the guarantee. So there is nothing pledged against that third increment of municipal gross receipts taxes right now.
Okay, so it's not used in any other part of the budget at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Brown, how big is the netting going to be?
I believe it's going to get out to the, on the two set fields that are separate, it's going to get to right behind the dugouts. And then it's going to go out to the dugouts on the fields that are connected. It's going to go out to the dugouts on that portion.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion. Councilor Ray.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2013-35, authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement and intercept agreement by and between the town of Silver City and the New Mexico Finance Authority in the principal amount of $764,950 for the purpose of financing the cost of purchasing equipment for the Scott Park Baseball and Soccer Complex for use by the governmental unit.
Mr. Mayor, I second the motion stated.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, there's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2013-35, authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement and intercept agreement by and between the town of Silver City and the New Mexico Finance Authority in the principal amount of $764,950 for the purpose of financing the cost of purchasing equipment for the Scott Park Baseball and Soccer Complex for use by the governmental unit. Roll call, please.
Councilor Morales?
Aye.
Councilor Ray?
Aye.
Councilor Cook?
Aye.
Councilor Edison?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approval, disapproval of notice of intent, ordinance number 1225, adopting a municipal infrastructure gross receipts tax in the amount of 1/8% for public safety purposes. Mr. Brown.
This NOI is to reauthorize the second and third 1/16th increment of municipal infrastructure gross receipts taxes that was originally imposed by ordinance 1085 back in July of 2004. At that date, the town council decided to put a sunset on the ordinance, the increment of gross receipts taxes, so that we could review what the funds were used for. In the presentation that I have provided, it's a detailed accounting of the funds, how they've been used to date. That's not the full 10 years because we still have the remainder of this fiscal year. So originally, it was used to hire 4 additional police officers, 1 additional firefighter, and it was used to pay for capital equipment for both the police and fire department. And I want to be clear that it was 4 police officers and 1 firefighter from the point we were at 10 years ago. It's not what we are right now, because actually it's paying for 3 officers because of the increased cost, salary and benefits that it costs for police officers right now compared to what they were being paid 10 years ago. The actual revenue received from the 1/16, well, the 1/8 total, hasn't been enough to continue 4 police officers. So it is 4 additional police officers and firefighter and capital equipment for the police and fire department. The way this process works is that we adopt the NOI now. The next step is that we have to go to it has to be presented to the voters, so it will be a part of our election resolution where we will present the question. At that point, when we put the question on there, we will ensure that the language specifies that it is for public safety, defined as police and fire. And at that point, if the voters approve it, then it cannot be amended at any future date by any future council for any other purpose. It has to be used for those definitions. But we're hoping not to put the future sunset, so we don't have to go through this again. We just want to put the guarantee in that question so that it can be used for any other purpose at any future time. Then we go to the election. If it's approved, then it comes back to the town council. You approve the final ordinance, and which in turn we turn around and send it to tax and revenue. I just read. The instructions for the adoption, we are going to put on the website, along with the information I gave you right now of all the all the increments of gross receipts taxes that we have already adopted. So all we're doing is continuing what was adopted in Ordinance 1085 in 2004. So it will be in the instructions of all the increments that we have and what are available to us, how they were adopted, when they were adopted, and what they can be used for, as well as what the funds that have been adopted under Ordinance 1085, how they have been used to this point since its adoption in July of 2004.
And that'll include the 5 taxes that we have not imposed.
Yeah, the 5 taxes we haven't imposed, as well as there is a 6th increment of municipal gross receipts taxes that isn't on this list, but the literature that will be available shows that we can adopt up to 1.5% municipal gross receipts taxes, and we're only showing 1.25% that we've adopted to this point.
Anybody in the audience like to speak regarding notice of intent ordinance number 1225? Come on up.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council, my name is Walter Szymanski, and I'm a resident of the town of Silver City. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. Clarification, did I understand that there will be no sunset provision in the proposal being put before the voters? And if that's true, I would like to ask what the rationale for that is.
The rationale is basically that this is critical infrastructure for the town and the public safety, and should this $3.3 million have not been in the budget under this tax, then that would have been $3.3 million less services that we could have provided. Going forward, that number would be projected to be slightly higher than that, which means it would have to come out of our road fund, we would lose the 4 officers, we would lose the firefighter, our police would be using old, outdated equipment. To continue to come back time and again and asking the same question for a tax that is that critical, it's my impression and my feeling that the town council is elected to protect the life, safety, and health of the citizens, and this is a critical funding source to do exactly that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Seeing none, Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Bedison?
I just want to make sure that the public understands that the purpose of this is it will be dedicated solely to public safety. And at no point would any council ever be able to change that if this passes? It can't be used for any other thing, only for public safety and for these critical infrastructure needs and for the health, safety, and welfare of our residents.
Yes, that's the sole use that it would be available.
Yeah, we're not gonna, this council or any future council are not gonna be spending it willy-nilly for anything else.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example. The municipal gross receipts taxes that we took from the water sewer fund and moved to dedicate for the 2011 bonds, we could do that because, first of all, the municipal gross receipts wasn't adopted by an election. But, for instance, let's go to those that were adopted under Ordinance 855, which is the municipal infrastructure gross receipts taxes. Those could be moved over and used for infrastructure bonds, whereby these can't. These would be public solely for police and fire. And the ones under Ordinance 855 could be used for infrastructure for water, it could be used for infrastructure for Parks and Rec, can be used infrastructure for something else. But it can't be, this one would guarantee it always goes to public safety.
Right, there is no laundry list, it's just public safety. And I think what I wanted to point out was, on the ISIP, one of the things that we moved up, I think to number 3, was a need for an ambulance for the fire department. So, these sorts of monies would provide for purchasing of an ambulance. It's a capital need, correct?
When in the presentation that's going to be available, we have copies of here, it shows what we used it for. We've used it for police vehicles. We've used it for the ladder truck right now that's going to be paid off. So those and then police and fire salaries and benefits are the only thing that it's been used for.
And I want to point out that on what you've done here and that we have and that you're going to provide to the public, this is just the purchase of those vehicles. There's nothing in here about the long-term maintenance of these vehicles. So those monies are being paid for out of the general fund. So this is just a flat-out purchase of these vehicles, of 17 patrol cars and the 1 ladder truck. But, I think that's how it shows how vital these monies are in providing us with capital funds to do this and also to have those officers and that 1 firefighter to provide for the health, safety, and welfare. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Cook?
Okay, Alex, we just okayed like a water hookup, which means our firemen will be going out there at one point, hopefully not, but maybe. So does that mean our fire department has to increase in amount of people? And if so, does it come out of this fund too? And how does that get divvied up between the police and the fire department?
Well, what you approved earlier was out in the county, and we are not primary response to that. Okay. Tyrone is primary response. We're secondary response to that. If there's something happening in town, we always go to what happens in town, whether there's something happening out in the county or not. So it's just utilizing the resources that we currently have and prioritizing where they go. Our first priority is in the city limits. Second priority is within the ETZ.
So it doesn't increase stress on the fire department, whereas the fire department would need more fire trucks and fire personnel?
They would say yes, but no.
But then, okay, so this, what is it, .125 or something? Is that divided up already amongst the fire department gets so much, the police department gets this much?
Well, right now, at this current point, it's being used specifically for 3 police officers, 1 firefighter, and the final debt service For the last 3 years, it's been used only for the debt service for the ladder truck. It hasn't been used for police vehicles. And it's because we haven't had, the amount we've received hasn't been enough to continue purchasing police vehicles. So, once the ladder truck is paid off, we'll reevaluate where that goes. That funding is available and where it goes. And most likely, we're looking at police cars because we're looking at other sources for the ambulances and the brush trucks that are the fire department's needs.
Councilor Benson.
Just one thing, total spent to date is $3,319,311. So that's how much we've actually had in income?
Yes.
So over 10 years, that's brought in, I mean, relatively speaking, a relatively small amount, considering how much we get in overall TRT on an annual basis.
Yes.
I think it's important to note that this is not a huge slush fund on an annual basis from which we have to draw on.
No, actually, this fund actually I've actually had to put a little bit of transfer money from the general fund a few times because the amount budgeted and expected to come in wasn't what actually came in. So we had to use additional funds from the general fund to offset some of the extra costs, just to maintain what we promised we would do out of that public safety tax.
Because GRT is, I mean, it's we estimate, but it's based on sales and...
Yeah, it goes up and down, you know. Actually, we're 7% less than we were last year. And really nothing's changed. Not a whole lot. I compared it to employment numbers of last year, and there's not a big difference. It's just, and we're seeing a decrease in revenue, so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Just to put in a little more emphasis on the importance of this fund is Nick Cicillo and his group with the Office of Sustainability are working on a plan that does some assessments going in the future, which we'll be seeing very soon, that shows that the climate is predicted over the next several years to be hotter, drier, and windier, and that's going to create a much higher demand on our public safety from the fire department trying to respond to the fires that are created, and the magnitude of those fires will be predicted to be more intense, and obviously law enforcement in setting up the perimeters and helping evacuate and get people out of the way of these fires. We absolutely have to not just maintain but continue to increase our levels of public safety that we're able to offer. And if not, it's all of the predictions are it's going to get worse. So this is part of preparing. Any other comments? Councilor Benson.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Notice of Intent Ordinance Number 1225, adopting a municipal infrastructure gross receipts tax in the amount of 1/8 of 1%, 0.125% for public safety purposes.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Morris.
Just a couple questions, and it's more over this next few weeks of public input and such, and trying to anticipate that. I just have a few questions. 10 years ago was not a repeat like what we're doing. That was the initial assessment of the tax?
Yes.
Was there anything specific that you're aware of that you as a staff thought that we did need to increase those staffs? Was there anything in particular?
Yeah, well, there was assessments within all the those two departments specifically, where, we realized that the community, although Silver City was not growing, the services and staff required, because of all the influx of people using our services from around Grant County and the other areas that come in to shop, we needed to provide additional services, especially emergency services, to fit that need. We also needed to get the additional equipment to replace it, because we weren't replacing it as effectively as we should have. But the council wanted to put an emphasis on ensuring that whether the gross receipts taxes that we were receiving went up or down, we were guaranteed that we were going to maintain an adequate level of police and fire by specifically dedicating this to police and fire.
That being said, as far as you recall, was there any anticipation that wasn't going to be needed? I'm trying to get clear why they would even put a sunset at that time. Did they think that populations were going to go down, or that we weren't going to need these services in the future?
The sunset was to satisfy one of the town councilors.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get a feel on what would motivate that type of thing, and I'm sure that there's the public that's going to be asking us, and I may be trying to articulate this or satisfy my own concerns.
I think his thinking was that whether he wanted to be able to, the town to come back and prove that we used it for those reasons, those uses, that we didn't use it for something else. And that's the reason that I showed put together the presentation of what it's actually been used for. Show that almost pretty much every penny plus additional revenues that I had to transfer in from the general fund were specifically and only used for those specific reasons.
And one of the differences here is it's being presented that it's going to be earmarked very specifically and directly to that purpose.
Yeah, per the question, and legally, once it's approved per the election, it can't be used for anything else.
Okay. Thank you. No.
I just want to respond a little bit, Councillor. Historically, some elected officials take a position that their position that they're elected to is to become the intermediary between the citizens and the evil government. That is an incorrect position to take. That is denying ownership, and we are the government. We are responsible for the public safety. We are responsible for ensuring that all of the departments have sufficient resources to provide the necessary services to the town. When they fail, that falls on us, and we take the ownership of it, and we have to be responsible for that. That philosophy has not always been carried by all of the elected officials, and I truly hope that this council understands that, and we continue to conduct ourselves in that manner, keeping that in mind, that the success and the failures in the operations of the town are owned by this body. Any other discussion? We've already got a motion, Chief. There's a motion and a second to approve notice of intent ordinance number 1225, adopting the municipal infrastructure gross receipts tax in the amount of 1/8%, which is 0.125% for public safety purposes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approval, disapproval of the destruction of records from the executive, finance, fire, community development, municipal court, Police, Recreation Center, Public Library, and Utilities Department. Quantity is 293 boxes. Ms. Mackey.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I'm asking for your approval to destroy those records from those various departments. The New Mexico Records and Archives have already given their approval. I've sent the request to them. They've approved, and now I'm asking you if you also approve.
Anybody in the audience like to just speak on this request? Seeing none, anybody on the council? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor.
I move for approval of the destruction of records from the Executive Finance, Fire, Community Development, Municipal Court, Police, Recreation Center, Public Library, and Utilities Departments. Quantity 293 boxes.
Mr. Mayor, I second the motion as stated.
There's a motion and a second to approve the request. Is there any other discussion? There's a motion and a second, no discussion, to approve the request of the destruction of records from the Executive Finance, Fire, Community Development, Municipal Court, Police, Recreation Center, Public Library, and Utilities Department in a quantity of 293 boxes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.